Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel Pretty in Paper by B, where we are all about sharing the joy of pretty papers. Now today, for episode 3 of my iris folding flower series, I'm going to be teaching you how to make an iris folding tulip. But not just one iris folding tulip, 3 iris folding tulips. And we're going to put them together to make a greetings card just like this one. So as you can see, I've got 3 different iris folding tulips. Now it's super easy and super simple, so perfect for all you iris folding beginners. So grab your supplies, guys, get comfy, and let's get crafting.
So we are ready to begin with today's session. Now the first thing that you're going to need is the PDF pattern. So I've got my tulip PDF download and I've cut it into the separate pieces ready for today. Now this piece is a card template and it's to make an A6 card, but we're not going to be making an A6 card today. So you're going to cut out the tulip shape on the template, and this is what we're going to use to get the tulip silhouette from our card base. Once you've got your tulip silhouette ready, we can think about drawing this on our 3 pieces of card, which are 7 cm by 14.85 cm, and when we push them together we get an A5 piece of card. Now we need to draw our tulip on each of these 3 strips, and to make sure we get this central, I'm going to use a ruler and put a mark in the middle of my strip, which will be about 3.5 cm. Now this mark is to make sure we get our tulips positioned centrally on our piece of card. And I'm going to have the top of the tulip about 2.5 centimetres from the top. So I'm going to place another little mark just below. When I've got my tulip central, I'm going to draw around the edges to get an outline, and this will be what we follow to cut out the tulip. Once you've done this on all 3 card strips, we can think about cutting it out. Now to do this, I'm going to use a craft knife and a cutting mat. So I'm going to position the cutting mat underneath my card to make sure I don't damage my surface. And I'm going to use this craft knife that I've got to cut out the tulips. So make sure you keep your hand behind the blade, and off you go. Once you cut out your tulip shapes, it's now time to think about the folding. So I'm going to move the cutting mat out of the way because we're not really going to need that anymore. And I'm going to grab the tulip pattern from the PDF download that we cut out at the start. So this tells us exactly where to place our paper strips. I'm going to use a couple of pieces of blue tack to stick this to the surface, and it's just to make sure it doesn't move while we're placing our paper strips. If it does, it can be a bit annoying because getting it back in the same place is always a little bit tricky. So make sure you've got your blue tack in place and the pattern isn't going anywhere. Now I'm going to need a couple more pieces of blue tack, and I'm going to stick one of my tulip silhouettes over the top of the pattern so I can see the lines through the middle. So once I've done this, I'm going to move the other 2 to one side because we'll be using them a little bit later. Now as you can see, I've got 8 different pretty papers out at the top of my table. So I'm going to be using these 4 on the light blue card, these 4 on the purple, and I'm going to use the 4 in the middle on the darker blue just to tie all those colours in together. So next I'm going to need to cut my papers into little strips about 2 centimetres wide. So to do this, I'm going to use a pair of scissors, or you can use a mini guillotine if you've got one handy. Once you cut out all of your paper strips ready, it's now time to think about where we're going to place each of those strips. So your pattern guide tells you exactly where each of your paper strips will go around your tulip. So for me, I'm going to use these 4 papers in this order of paper A, paper B, paper C and paper D. So once I've decided that, I'm going to grab my strip of paper A and fold over an edge of about 0.5 to 0.7 millimetres, just to make sure I've got a nice clean fold. You then want to cut a section wide enough to cover number 1 on the pattern and place your strip with the folded edge facing towards the centre of the design, and stick down each end with a couple of little bits of sticky tape. Now you want to make sure your strip doesn't overlap the edge of the card base, so you might need to trim this down a little bit. Once you've got your first strip in place, you can think about placing the rest of your folds around your tulip following your pattern guide. Off you go! Once the last of your paper strips is in place, you can think about covering the hole in the middle of your iris folding. So for this, I'm going to use a little bit of glitter card because I absolutely love anything with a bit of sparkle. So you need to place this face down over the hole and stick in place with a couple of bits of tape. Now it's time to turn over your tulip and have a look at your hard work. As you can see, tulip 1 is done and we're ready to move on to tulip number 2. You're going to do the same thing again, so stick your silhouette over the tulip and with your next 4 papers decide which are paper A and so on. Fold over a strip of paper A and cut a section wide enough to cover number 1 on the pattern. Yes, you know what's coming next. Stick in place with a couple of bits of sticky tape and make sure to trim your paper so that it doesn't overlap the edge. Once you've done that, you're going to keep following your pattern guide around your tulip using your new papers. So off you go! And for tulip number 3, you are going to do exactly the same thing with 4 different papers, or 4 kind of overlapping like I've done. You're going to fold them around tulip number 3, following your pattern guide in exactly the same way that you've already done. Once you've finished the final of your 3 tulips, it's time to think about turning those tulips into a greetings card. So I folded a piece of A4 card in half to make it an A5 size, and I'm going to use foam sticky pads to mount my tulips to the front of the card. Now I always suggest that you also use foam sticky pads. Anything like glue or double-sided tape wouldn't allow for space for those folds to fit underneath your topper, so it can prevent bulging and cause a bit of an uneven surface on the card. So I'd always suggest using foam sticky pads. Make sure you've covered the corners of your tulip and then peel the backs off your foam sticky pads and stick to the front of your card. Once you've done this with the first tulip, you can then do the same for the following 2. And there you have it. You have turned your iris folding tulips into a greetings card. Now you could stop there, or you might choose to add some embellishments to the front. For example, you could use the embellishment template I've included in the PDF and cut out some stems and leaves to go underneath your tulips. Here's a little bit of a tip for you all. You can use the side of a pencil to add a little bit of volume and dimension to your leaves. Just roll the pencil lengthways around your leaf and it'll just add a little bit more texture to your card rather than it being flat. Just need a little bit of glue on the end of the leaf and attach it to your stem. And you can do this for the rest of the leaves should you want to. And there you have it, your tulip iris folded greetings card. Now again, you could leave it there, or you might choose to add a little sentiment to your card. I've got these happy birthday silver stickers that I think will just tie in nicely with the silver I've used for the iris. So I'm just going to place a little happy birthday at the bottom of this card. I'm going to do this slightly off centre because I personally like everything to not quite be symmetrical. And now we're finished. That is pretty much it from me here, guys. Thank you so much for listening to my card making tutorial, and if you've enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.